jump right in with the first question, and this is addressed to all y'all. So just feel free if you feel like jumping in, just start speaking. I'll hand you the mic. When did you realize your passion for hip hop? And the second part of that question, if you want to touch on, is what hip hop artists influence you the most and why?
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? All right, cool. So for myself personally, the first thing that pops out in my mind when I was probably like 14, I bought a VHS tape called Style Wars. And Style Wars is basically a documentary from New York City that covers the birth and the history of the graffiti and breakdancing, b-boying, b-girling movement. So that is a highly recommended documentary for any of you guys to check out. If you haven't seen it before, that's what got me into hip-hop, basically. And also laid out a very clear format of the foundation, like painting trains, doing burners, the rules, and also b-boying too. So that's my answer.
Well, for me, it was definitely probably in middle school, because before then, I wasn't really exposed to hip hop that much. I was listening to soul and R&B, because my folks didn't listen to hip hop. Just to be truthful, they didn't really understand it. My uncle really got me into it. He got me listening to like Grandmaster Flash, Curtis Blow, like all that old school stuff that really spoke to me. And yeah, probably about middle school is when it really clicked for me. But for like the two artists that really spoke to me was first Mr. Wiggles, who I saw on like random VHS tapes and like music videos. And even today, like he's constantly reinventing himself. He's like a straight businessman and he stays strictly hip hop. And he's about promoting the culture and getting all the history, like all the sides. He's not telling one side to, build himself up. He's bringing up the culture, so I really admire him. And then there is Skeeter Rabbit from the Electric Boogaloos that got me into wanting to learn the Fresno style of popping and boogaloo. And I saw him like on a 15-second clip that was on like, when internet first came out. I was on them internets, and I was like waiting for that stuff to load. It took like 10 minutes to watch a 15-second clip. I was just watching that over and over again. I was like, oh man, I want to learn how to do that. But yeah, like Gil said, Style Wars was another one that was really big. Luckily, I had like big brothers and sisters like Anna and Gil that were in the community supporting all this stuff and giving us these resources to learn from. So yeah, I gotta thank you guys, really.
Anybody else? Do you want everybody to answer the same question? For me, it was 1985. I got the Fat Boys record from a friend of mine. That's going way, way back, man. And old heads in the building. In a way, it's a real trip to even be in this position, looking at young faces, man. Hi, because I mean, I was a little bit older than you are now, but to think like your access and your exposure to this culture, it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, 1985 was a long time ago, but it happened. It goes by fast. So yeah, much appreciation just for you being here and allowing me to be where I'm at.
So for me, I'm 26 years old, and I started rapping when I was 10 years old, which is kind of crazy to think about because I've already been doing this for almost 2/3 of my life, and it's hard to really pinpoint an exact moment when I started. But for me, it was the older brothers and cousins and family that I had in my life that really gave me positive music to listen to. I was around hip hop because of the people that I grew up with, but it was Black Star Records. It was early Tupac stuff. It was the Black Eyed Peas before Fergie. I mean, and it was just like certain records for me really spoke to me. And as a youth that was behind in school and had fell into the special ed program and wasn't wasn't really encouraged to use my voice, hip hop was a platform that told me that it was okay to speak and to write and to talk about how I felt. And it really, if it wasn't for hip hop, I don't know where I would be really. So that was me.
So when I got into hip hop, I actually didn't start dancing. I got into DJing. I was a transplant. I used to live in the Bay Area while I was in middle school and first year of high school, and then we moved up to Everett, Washington, which is not Seattle, when I was 14. And you know, I was in high school, so that was horrible. You know, that was the worst thing that could happen at that point in my life. And so when I moved to Everett, I didn't identify. I just didn't identify with where I was at when I moved. So I was feeling kind of lost, and then I don't know. Music is something I turn to when I'm not feeling good. So I tried listening to the music up here. There was Cube 93, and they'd play like the same stuff every single hour on the hour. I think it was like that one Usher song that, you know, you make me wanna leave the one I'm with, that one. So it was on every single hour at the same time of the hour. So that's when I realized that I needed music, and then I was like, wow, you know. And I didn't even know that the music that I listened to while living in the Bay was hip hop. I just thought it was music. It was good music, and so I started actively seeking that. And then I started learning about DJing. I was like, oh wow, you know, there's this culture that's going on. And the first artist that really, really inspired me and that kind of blew my mind was DJ Qbert. So he's this like really short DJ. I think he might actually be shorter than me. I'm just this short. I think he might like be a little shorter than me. But he's this crazy, amazing DJ, and he just happens to be Filipino, and he was living in the Bay at the time. And I found out about him and his crew, and I was like, oh, these are like some of the best DJs in the world, and they're Filipino? It's like, oh, okay. So, and I'm Filipino, so that really resonated within me, and I identified with that, and I was like, okay, that's cool. So after learning about him and DJing and turntablism and hip hop, I started actively seeking it out and started meeting people in the scene in Seattle. And so that's how I found my community. And so that's why I like sharing hip hop with other people, because, you know, maybe they're not finding something to connect with, and if it's a possibility that it's a way for someone else to connect, I'm super down for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you guys. That's a good segue into the next question. And it's crazy to think about everything you guys just talked about, your moments, you know, your first moments with hip hop culture. And it's crazy to think that right now could be happening for a lot of these guys. And they might not know it, or they are realizing it right now, or they just had it last week, or they've been breaking for a year now. And it's like crazy that their whole life has been taken over by it or something. And that's really special and really, really valuable. And it's amazing that can continue to happen. And a lot of you guys actually in your bios talk about how hip-hop has empowered you, but then now you're giving back, you're trying to spread it, you're trying to be leaders, etc. And so that's a good segue, and kind of what you were just starting to touch on is the social responsibility aspect of hip-hop. So why don't you talk a little bit about how you think that fits into hip-hop culture more than just personally and from a art form and expression point of view, but from a point of view of giving back in the community?
Well, for me, I feel like that's kind of the birth of at least emceeing. You know, it's like, you know, ghetto reporting, like telling the stories that the news reporters weren't telling, you know, and speaking on the issues that really involve the community. And for me, when I started rapping, I didn't really fully realize the magnitude and the importance of the microphone and the stage and the responsibility that it was going to be. And when I started to have more shows and I built a fan base, it really became, it wasn't a choice of mine. It's something that is given to you. Like, this is a platform, and you have to decide if it's going to be something that you're going to use for good or evil. You know, it's like it made me think a lot about who I was and what type of artist I wanted to be, what type of legacy I wanted to have, and what kind of impact I wanted to have, because people would turn to me for, they would use my music in their life, and it really affected people. So I don't know, it's a really powerful thing. It's bigger than us. It's playing shows is like a spiritual experience, and the music is beyond me. So I just try to play my role and respect the art form and the culture, and talk about the things that I see and the things that my people go through.
Yes, and no disrespect to any MCs, but I think sometimes we look to MCs to be the mouthpiece or to be the voice of that social responsibility, but each of us plays a vital role in preservation of hip hop as a culture. And the reason why that's even important, because a lot of people think that it really borders on the corny to talk about preservation of hip hop culture, but it matters, and I'll tell you why. Is because it's one of the last places left where white folks still have to abide by a code. They get away with everything in just about every other facet of life, but if white folks want to participate in hip hop culture, they have to pay respect. They have to pay dues. And if you don't understand why that's important, then we have to have a much longer conversation some other time. But that matters, and take that and do with it what you will, please. But this culture is important.
Social responsibility to the community. I agree. And as an artist, as a graffiti artist, I think that it's important to engage your community. The problem is that graffiti and b-boying are underground art forms. So a lot of the time, yeah. So a lot of the time, the community has misconceptions about what goes on. A typical question for people that do breakdancing is like, "Oh, are you in a dance crew? Do you guys go on ABDC? Are you guys trying out for the team?" It's like, no, it's not like that. We cipher and we do contests and battle and stuff. It's not. A lot of the time, the community doesn't quite understand. So you have to educate each other, and do b-boying and graffiti for myself personally in a way that's more legitimized, possibly. Like, I don't know. As far as graffiti goes, doing murals, like doing something that's positive, that's actually a message, that's touching on an important topic, similar to what Saul was saying about his raps, you know what I mean? Stuff that he's gonna say. So it's important that you have that voice. I have the ability to do a wall this big, but what am I gonna put on it, So to me, I wanna put something that's at least eye-catching or entertaining or fun, and hopefully I could tie in like a socially conscious or positive message with that.
So, like, to touch back what Ross said, like, there's this really good book that I actually brought. I have in the back. I was going to show you guys. It's called Bomb the Suburbs. It's written by a white Chicago writer, and he was basically saying the same thing. This culture is important because it's the only culture where white people have to follow a set of rules that aren't their own, And it's a really good book. You should pick it up and read it. I'm not very good with words. If I was, I would have been an MC instead of a dancer, But like, it's a very good book, and it touches on really good stuff. So, and he published it, he distributed it all by himself because nobody wanted to do it because it was a hip hop book. It was just straight grit. So he had to just print these books out, get them done, and hand them out to people, and whoever would buy them. Bomb the Suburbs. Okay, you could probably find it at like half-price books, but somebody had given it to me when I was in high school, and it was a really it was a blessing. So yeah, I mean, this, to be corny, it's not really what hip hop has social responsibility to community. I feel it's reversed now. Right now, it's the community's responsibility to do something for hip hop. You have to start representing this culture to its fullest. You have the opportunity to learn all this stuff. You have all these resources here, especially in Seattle. We have so much rich history here. We got like Mad Crew from back in the day. We got Zulu Nation here. We have all these brothers and sisters in this community that you can reach to. You have the, internet now. You have all this stuff at your fingertips. It's really up to you guys to, how you want to start having, what you want to do for hip hop, or what your place is in hip hop. And I know it's different at this stage in your life because I didn't notice it until I was older, and I didn't realize how much it really helped me with my life and how much it can change the world. And so it might just be you haven't had that epiphany yet, you haven't hit that milestone in your life yet, but you'll look back and just be like, damn, what would I do without this? I mean, look at this room, it's so ethnically diverse. Where else can you go? What other culture can you have where you can look next to you and see somebody that's of a different, color, different creed, different religious background, and you can chill together and vibe together over dance and music, So, yeah, I think it's more of what we can do for our culture, because this is our culture. This is more American than anything. This is all of us coming together. This is all of us sharing, every ethnicity, every nation, So, bless, all right?
So like what Chris said, hip hop was born in America, right? It came from young people from communities of color that, I don't know, couldn't take like ballet classes, or they couldn't afford to be on the basketball team or whatever. They didn't have all these things that a lot of people take for granted that have money, and it's the way that people express themselves. So hip hop is like a vehicle for self-expression, which is very important. Everybody has to express themselves, and so I think with hip hop, that's what we do. That's how we discover ourselves and find our identity. It's like, if you're in the hip hop scene right now, if you're in the hip hop culture, if you dance, if you do anything, you're like, this is what I do. I'm in hip hop. This is how I find myself, and this is a true expression of who I am. And so hip hop isn't this thing. It's not this thing. It's like, oh, that's hip hop or whatever. Hip hop is community, and it's a community of people, and it's a way of expressing yourself. And that's so powerful. That's so powerful. Even if you don't have anything, you don't have money, you don't have family. You could find all that in hip hop. And it seems like abstract and stuff, but it's a community. It's a community, and I don't know. It's crazy powerful. It's so powerful, and it's amazing how you can touch people with hip hop, with just expressing yourself. You express yourself, and then someone else maybe is like, oh, I identify with that. Like me, I didn't want to start breaking until I saw a girl do it, which is the other girl in Massive Monkeys. I didn't care. I didn't care about breaking. Whenever I saw guys do it after school, I didn't care. I don't know if they were just whack, or if I never identified with it when I saw a guy breaking. I never identified with it. I never thought ever. I was like, oh, I want to do that. That looks cool. Ever. I never thought it looked cool. But as soon as I saw Lotus, as soon as I saw her practicing after school, I was like, I want to try that. And it was because she was a girl. She was great. Actually, she was really good too. But she was a girl, and so I identified with that. And I love that in hip hop, you see something, and it might not be about gender. It might not be like, skin color or whatever. You look the same or whatever. But you kind of feel a pull. Whether it's a message or the style in which the person delivers whatever, their dance, their visual art, their words, something touches you and pulls you in. And so I think that's super powerful. And so I think hip hop, just being in hip hop, it's kind of your responsibility to just be true to yourself and to express yourself. And that's how it spreads, and that's why so many people like it, because people who are involved with hip hop, they have to. This is how they express themselves. This is how we communicate, and so that's why it's the most natural when it's in that way.
Word. That was beautiful. Amazing. We're gonna get a little specific and ask some questions to specific members on the panel, and then we'll go to some questions to the crowd. This one is for Gilatine in particular. Gil, you've had a lot of experiences across different levels of hip hop, I think. with respect to being in the local community, being in the underground community, and actually also having experiences in the more recent developing industry, the Los Angeles entertainment industry. And so this question is really important, I believe, to the actual overall theme, which I realize I didn't mention, which is hip hop through the years. But what do you think about the commodification and the business of hip hop and what it has done to the culture, or what may be on a positive tip so that it doesn't skew so negatively, what we can bring out of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So with the commodification of hip hop culture, you can see it in many different levels. Probably the most prevalent or easy to witness is going to be in the music industry, which I'll let these guys speak on because they know way more about it than I do. But I see it in dance with b-boying. It's kind of like you lose creative control once you go into that world. You know, if you get cast in a movie or a music video or a tour or whatever it is that you're doing for your work as a dancer, you're subject to what the directors, the producers, and all the other, tour manager, what those people want you to do. So that is where you compromise your creative control, but you get to work doing b-boying, you know what I mean? So that's pretty awesome for me, I guess. So I love it. I think it's pretty cool. I think that with the commodification of it, though, you still have to keep it raw, and that's why there's an underground culture. That's one of the things that is the most awesome about living in Los Angeles. Like, all the illest writers, MCs, DJs, and b-boys are there, like, coming in and out, leaving and going, or just staying there. So all the ciphers are super dope. You get to do great jobs and meet people that you looked up to that you never thought you'd ever even meet, So it's pretty awesome, but you just have to maintain, maintain your presence in the local community and maintain your self-respect as a performer and as an artist. And commodification. Does that include YouTube?
If you want to speak on it.
Don't look on YouTube and bite.
That's real.
Yeah. YouTube is for research. It's great for research, and there's a lot of great stuff you can watch and find out about other people from around the world, but I see it as commodifying hip-hop because people, like, promote themselves on it and make themselves look like something and you don't even know who they are in real life, or they just copy, you know what I mean? Like I call it, like, Attack of the Clones or the Clone Wars. It's like right now the Clone Wars is happening, so in real life. So that's it, commodification of hip-hop.
Star Wars, December 2015. Dope. Do any of you guys have anything to add to that, or I got another question Anna wants to add to that. Absolutely.
Oh, just real quick. I don't think there's anything wrong with hustling through hip hop. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. The thing that's wrong in the mainstream is that people who have nothing to do with hip hop try to make money off of hip hop and try to make money through artists. And so that's the part that's wrong. That's the part that's an error. But there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with making a living through hip hop, and it just shows examples of how to make it in a different way, being an artist or whatever. And so hip hop is about being creative, right? So we just have to be creative and figure out how to outsmart people who have money and power, but we just don't give them control. So that's what I'm saying.
That's what's up. This next question, so we're kind of talking about the business of it. Let's go local. This question is for Saul. Saul, just for a quick context, Saul is a UW graduate as well. I think we graduated around the same time. Was it 2010 or 2011 for you? 2011? What's that? Would you graduate? 2011? All right, I was 2010. Anyways, he received a pretty prestigious scholarship called the Bonderman, and allowed you to travel across the country, across the globe, and going to a lot of different countries. And it was through your music, you express some definitive kind of perspective shifts through that experience. And so this question is more about how, when you came back, how did you feel about Seattle and really what makes Seattle's hip-hop scene special? Can you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah. So for me, coming back to Seattle after traveling abroad, firstly, I don't want to blow over the first part of that, where being able to go to places like India, Ethiopia, Uganda, Brazil, Haiti. Everywhere I went, there's hip hop culture. There's breakdancing. There's DJing. There's MCing. There's no language that has traveled the way that hip hop has. You know, it's really the most extraordinary thing. And artists, people have connected to hip hop culture when they don't even understand the words, because it's just emotion, and that's the thing. Whenever I make a living making music, and I've never signed a record deal or anything like that. And the way that I keep control is I stay connected, and because that's what they can't take away from you unless you give it to them. These companies, they want to get involved and they want to get in the middle between the people and the art when the people are the art. And that's what's so powerful about Seattle hip-hop, is because Seattle music in general has this legacy of independence and DIY culture. Because we're up here in this little far left corner and nobody pays attention to us, we've always had to do things on our own. And because of that, we built our own sound, we've built our own styles, communities, our own resources, our own venues, when they didn't have any of that for us. And I really, really came to appreciate that coming back to Seattle and back to my crew and everybody, because we're always going to be there for each other. And the dopest thing is me coming back after having left. I kind of got to see it from the perspective of so many of my homies who came from Seattle from other places, where Seattle, if you come into it with the right mindset and the right perspective, Seattle will always welcome you with open arms. Seattle hip-hop culture is not exclusionary. There's a lot of cities that I've traveled to on tour and stuff where people are cold. And Seattle hip-hop is always open and always willing to learn and welcome new people in. And I think that's why it'll always stay alive.
That's what's up. Seattle. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Word. How much time do we got left? Should we go to questions, or should we ask one more question from here? One more question from here? Okay. So this one I'm gonna throw this to Ra. Not to call you out, but you've been in hip hop for a long time. You mentioned it. You said 1985.
That's a blessing.
That's
man.
before I was born.
I'm proud of
right?
that. That's okay.
Word.
That's okay.
Word. Yeah. So respect. But this question is more, and I'll bundle it up so you can kind of answer how you'd like. But one part of it is what have you seen through your time in hip hop culture and being a part of it through all these years? What have you seen that was the most significant change in it? And what is something that you may have wanted to know maybe when you started with hip hop culture? What's one thing that you might have wanted to know?
I wish somebody would have told me that it was okay not to like stuff. Because it's important that it can still exist and there can still be a purpose for something that you don't particularly care for. Because what happens when we start to judge or criticize or say that doesn't belong or it doesn't qualify, then there starts to become a lot of division. And so if we break down more walls and barriers and just kind of expand the parameters of what could actually be a valuable contribution, could provide more value to the movement, so to speak. I wish somebody would have told me, don't be so quick to judge, and that includes club rap. We talk a lot about cultural preservation and purity and the real hip hop. That's what turns a whole lot of people off. That's why a whole lot of people don't want to come and be a part of the hip hop culture, is because they feel like there's too much judgment. It's okay to have ignorant R&B. Yo, that shit is tight in the right application. It's okay to have club music at the club. It's okay to be in the car and turn up, whatever it is that's on the radio if it fits the application. You see what I mean? Just let it in. It doesn't have to be for you at that moment, but I wish somebody would have told me that. Does that make sense? And the first part was what again?
What have you noticed the most significant change in hip hop culture through all the years?
you know, the more things change, the more things stay the same, dude. And I think that it's such a great, it's such a great feeling to think that, you know, hip hop as a culture has been more accepting of, you know, homosexuality, or we've been more and more aware of misogyny, you know, sexism. We've been more aware of race issues, but what are we gonna do to change it? Thank you. We've got a lot of power, and I get emotional when I talk about it. But we have a lot of responsibility as well. So change, like we observe a lot of change, and we take credit for this change, and rightfully so. Like we deserve a lot of credit for change, but we have so much responsibility. So we got to do something with that.
Word. Anyone have anything to add to that? Okay. We can take some audience questions. Jordan, our UW HHSA president, will facilitate.
Could I add something to what he just said?
Yeah, go for it, Gilatine.
It's just really basic. It's just really quick. Hip-hop is so prevalent now. So many people breaking, so many people doing MCing, DJing, and all the elements of hip-hop, right? So with that change, there's so many new people. I just think one thing that's important to affirm is that if you do any of those elements, let's say if you go to here to UW and you break in the dorm and break at the practice spot, think of it as a full contact sport. You know what I mean? If you train like an athlete, you'll be good. And think of the other things that come along with that, getting injured. You know what I mean? Because like a lot of people get injured, they love to break, and that injury is the end. After that, they're done. They don't do yoga, they don't do physical therapy. It's over because like sometimes in hip hop, like I don't know, it doesn't come from it comes from the streets, right? So we don't have like our yoga, tai chi ways to heal your body. So you have to learn those from being athletic. You know, so same thing with graffiti. Do it as full contact sport. Go all in. That way you'll stand out.
That's real. I think just to distill that a little bit, it's like knowledge as an element of hip hop is it's good to have these conversations, but at the same time, knowledge can be held up in the form of being self-educated as an artist, or you know, whether it be an MC and knowing your social responsibility and utilizing your platform for the right things and having that awareness, or as a b-boy and taking care of your body and making sure that you know you take care of yourself, because what you're trying to pursue is truly an extreme a burden on your body, and a lot of b-boys just kind of like go for it until they can't do it anymore. And so yeah, I think elevating that part of it is super important. So that's what's up, Gil. Let's open it up to quick audience questions. Does anybody have any? How does this work? Do we want to have somebody come up to the mic? Let's do it. You got a question, don't you? Nope. He's like, nah. Introduce yourself.
I'm Elisa. I'm actually with HHSA, but I'm here to learn absorb. And I just had a question about people who, I mean, you guys all have your artistic expression through, you know, MC, graffiti, dance, whatever. But for those who aren't really artists and pursuing those avenues within hip hop, how can they stay involved and like immersed in the community and like make their influence, you know, because in HHSA ourselves, like we have people who are dancers, we have MCs, we have DJs, and then we have people that just appreciate hip hop, and sometimes like it's hard for them to find their way into the community because they're not like, oh, I'm a dancer, so I can join. Like I just like hip hop. How do I get involved? You know. So what would you guys say for that? Those people.
Contact your local Zulu Nation chapter. Universal
or
Zulu
local
Nation.
HHSA, hip hop,
or the Hip Hop Student Association at the University of Washington.
Clubs. Throw events like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think really just stay as close to the things that you love as possible, and see what, you know, relationships and friendships come from that. You know, I'm a touring artist, and my team is compiled of, I'm the only rapper, you know, but there's 8 to 10 people working with and for me, and everybody's involved and playing their role in furthering the music. And it takes a lot of people to make something like that work. So if you're into the business, or you're into, I don't know, fashion, and you want to get involved in merchandising, it is a business. So if you think about it that way, there's so many different ways to get your hands dirty. But from a creative perspective, I started writing for really personal reasons, and I was not a prodigy by any means. I probably didn't have a rap that my friends would even listen to until about 8 years into my career. And, I was just writing for myself, and because I needed to express myself. And even if you don't feel inclined to write or anything like that, I would, I'm helping raise my nephew right now, and it's like, I want him to be creative and express himself. And, he's 6 years old, so it's easy to encourage that stuff. But whether you're 6 years old or you're 26 years old, you should be writing every day. You should be, expressing yourself creatively and keeping that part of yourself, those circuits in your brain working, just from a human perspective. Like, it's really healthy for us to be doing stuff like that. And if you connect to hip-hop, man, write some raps. You don't got to show them to anybody. But it's like, really, I think we have this very American perspective of, it's like, you have to be like a professional in order to do something. You have to be able to, you have to be competing for something for some reason. If you're not as good as the next person, then you shouldn't be doing it. You should be embarrassed about yourself. But I think that's really just whack. That's whack. So, dance, sing, write, draw, all of that shit.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. I mean, as somebody who's thrown some events and been involved in hip-hop on different facets, I mean, I'm a b-boy, but I've been involved in business aspects and, event production and, just being a supporter and being a fan. And, I've seen people come into our community as photographers, as, people that are just like, they just want to support and bring their families to the events and, pay for tickets and stuff. Like, people just do what you love, and then find hip hop through your life path. You know what I mean? Because it's a culture. So there's business facets to it. There's artistic facets to it. It's all encompassing. There's levels, and you can be involved as much or as little as you want to be, and you can still be a fan. Don't be afraid to be a fan. Some people are afraid to do that, and they're like they got the ego in the way of them. But they can be a fan, and they can listen to the music and be hype about that. So just do what you want to do. You know what I mean? And I'm not a part of the panel, so I'm just gonna fall back. Is there any other question? Do we have time? I want to be mindful. Last question.
How y'all doing? My name's Restless. This one's for Raw. I'd like to hear you speak a little bit on the presence of discipline in the progression of your style, and how discipline played a part in how you became who you are now.
Wow. You couldn't have hit me with that earlier, right? Gave me just a minute to think about that. Discipline. Yeah, okay, so for me, a lot of, and again, all of this comes through the mind or the lens of an MC, so the voice, and I've already discounted that to some extent, but now you have to understand that that's where I'm speaking from. So the voice, where does the voice come from? What is the voice about? What does the voice represent? And for me, it's always been about accountability. And if I say something, I want to be able to back it up. I want to be able to stand behind it. And that, you can't get to that place without some form of discipline. And so in the past, I found it in religion. And I'm not afraid to admit that, not only was I just a spiritual person, but I was a very religious person. I was born in Kentucky, and I came up in the church. And when I realized that the church wasn't for me, I went and found a different religion. And I was a Baha'i for 19 years. And when I realized that didn't work for me, I said, fine, on to the next discipline. And that is progression. So it's okay to step outside of the box, but make sure it's not just to get away from something, but more towards something else.
That's right. Dope. Well, I want to thank you guys all for sitting up here and kind of talking a lot about yourselves and talking a lot about this thing called hip hop. respect. Thank you for coming out and taking the time to do that. All these guys did that for free, came out to support. These guys are busy people, accomplished artists, so give it up. And thank y'all for staying quiet and like listening, and this is dope. Like I see you guys absorbing it. That's what's up.